Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a web developer, a consultant, and an instructor. I have over 10 years experience working as a web developer. Currently, I'm working as a consultant where I work with business to provide viable technology solutions for their business. As an instructor, I like to share my knowledge, experiences, and ideas with people. WordPress is the most popular web content management system in the world, and it has over 60 million websites built using WordPress CMS. Building a WordPress website is just the beginning of a website construction. Protecting the website from hacking, infested with malware and spam, is a daunting task for anyone. By the end of this course, you will be able to enhance the overall functionality of your WordPress website. Protect your website in real time from hackers, malwares, and viruses. Load your website under 3 seconds. Implement a disaster recovery procedures for your website and carry out a simulated recovery for your website. Integrating Google Analytics APIs to your website and track your website visitors. Lock out a website if an intruder attempts to hack your website. Reconfigure PHP's mail function to ensure your website's email more reliable. Fight and prevent spam from automated bots attacking your website. Optimize your WordPress website and increase your website visibility to search engines such as Google, Bing, and Yahoo. This course aims for anyone who wants to learn WordPress plugins. That is, anyone who develops website using WordPress at all level, and WordPress end users, or a business owner who like to quickly and effectively use top WordPress plugins without spending days researching and testing the most commonly used WordPress plugin. All you have to do is click on the Take This Course button, and I can guarantee that you can get all the tools above mentioned to optimize the functionality of your website without costing you 1 cent to purchase the tools. Thank you for watching this course, and I really appreciate the opportunity for guiding you through this course. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the SI CAPTCHA Anti-Spam. This plugin prevents spam from automated bots by adding a CAPTCHA in contact form, comment box, registration form, login form, and lost password form. Basically, a user must type in the code on the image along with their username and password as part of the login authentication. Let's install SI CAPTCHA Anti-Spam plugin. Click on Add New. Click on Search Plugin box. Type in SI CAPTCHA Anti-Spam. Enter. Click on Install Now. The plugin has been successfully installed. Next, let's activate the plugin. The plugin has been successfully installed and activated. Next, let's configure the plugin. By default, the login form is not enabled, so click here to enable the captcha on the logging phone. And the rest of these options are enabled. And I'll just leave all the feature as is. The next part is that you could change the captcha form style if you wished. Now when you have a chance, please go through and play around with the size and the color and to see how you like it. Next, click on Update Options. And that's about it. Now let's test to see if the plugin worked correctly. Next, I'll log out. As you can see, the captcha anti-spam code has been placed below the username and password. It is now a 3 factors required in order to authenticate that the human is logging into WordPress backend as opposed to a robot can try to spam your WordPress backend. Now, before we logged in, let's see what happened if I clicked on the lost your password link. Scroll down. As you can see, in order for me to obtain to request a lost password, I must also enter the captcha code here. Next, let's go back. Let's go next. Let's click on the contact form. As you can see, the contact form requires the captcha code entered by you. Now let's go back to the login form and logged in without the captcha code to see what happened. And here I am not entering the captcha code. Click on login. As you can see, there is an error message here. It indicates that the empty captcha. It indicated that this box here is empty. Now let's enter the username, password, and the captcha code again. As you can see, we have logged in to the backend of WordPress successfully. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any question, please post it in our course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the W3 Total Cache. This plugin designed to improve the user experience of the site by increasing server performance, reducing the download times, and providing transparent content delivery network integrations. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following task. Search, download, install, configure, and test the W3 Total Cache. We are currently at the WordPress dashboard. On the left-hand side, you will see a menu. In that menu, click on the plugins. The plugins will be highlighted in the menu and will be shown the plugin you have installed so far. Now click Add New and type in the search plugin W3 Total Cached and hit Enter. The W3 Total Cache appeared on a page of search result. Then click the Install Now to start installing the plugin. Then click Activate Plugin. Once the plugin has been activated, scroll to the bottom and locate the W3 Total Cached plugin and click on the settings. The W3 Total Cache dashboard appeared. Here we can configure various options for W3 Total Cache. First, we want to look at the General options. Under the General options, so for testing purposes, I click on the checkbox, toggle all caching tapes on or off at once. Notice the page cache has been automatically enabled. The magnify has been enabled. The database cache has been enabled. The object cache has been enabled. The browser cache has been enabled. The CDN has been enabled. The reverse proxy has been enabled. And the monitoring New Relic has been enabled too. So basically, what we want to do is to go and enable each cache options by ourselves. This way, because there are some options that we probably not going to use, such as the CDN options and the New Relic options. So I am going to uncheck the toggle all caching tapes on or off at once. Next, we want to look at the page cached. We want to enable the page cached. Basically, paging cache. Basically, caching the page will reduce the response time of your site and increase the scale of your web server. And the page cache method is disk enhanced, since most of our website resided on the shared server. So the default option is disk enhanced. Next, minify. By enabling minify, what minify is that it reduces the load time by decreasing the size and the number of CSS and JavaScript files automatically removed unnecessary data from CSS, JS, feed, page, and post HTML. So what is unnecessary data? Basically, in your code, such as the HTML code, the CSS code, the JavaScript file, there are extra spaces. That's what it does. It removes the extra spaces, and it compress your files. So do we want to minify do we want to turn on the minify options? Yes, we want to turn on the minify. Basically, by enable minify, what it does is it decreases the file size of the HTML, CSS, the JS, and the feeds respectively by 10% on an average. And the minify mode, I would put it on automatic. And the minify cache method, we want to select disk. And the HTML minifier set it as default, and the JS minifier set as default, and the CSS minifier set as default. Next. Next. Then we want to enable the database cached. And the database cache method is disk. And then we want to enable the object cache. Then we want to enable the object cache. By enabling the object cache, it increases the performance for highly dynamic sites that use the object cache API. So by default, just enable it. Then we want to enable the browser cached. Basically, what it does, it also decreases the response time by using the cache available in the site visitor web browsers. Then we want to enable the browsers cached. The browser cache reduces the response time by using the cache available in site visitor web browsers. Basically, what it does is the first time you come to visit the website, it downloaded the CSS page, the images, and all the necessary information and stored it on your web browsers, cached. So when you return again without clearing your web browser cache, your page loads very fast. Next, for the monitoring option, should we enable the New Relic or should we not enable the New Relic? Before we decide to enable the New Relic or not to enable the New Relic, first let's find out what is New Relic. New Relic is a web application performance services that integrate with your website. Its purposes is to let you see your web performance data such as web browsers, response time, browser type, user geographic location, tracking the database queries, etc. It is a third-party services. So in order to enable the New Relic, one must have an account. So for testing purposes, I will not enable the new relic. Next, I want to talk about CDN. What is CDN and how does CDN work? Basically, CDN is a content delivery network. CDN utilize technology standardized like Anycast and BGP to transmit the static content files from your web host server to a network of servers that are distributed at different geographic locations around the world. Caching the contents of the files to each server at a different locations. When the user's browser requests a static file that is linked to a CDN, the CDN redirects the request from originating site server to a point of presence that is closest to the users. For example, if I'm in Chicago and I am looking at a website and I request a page, the places closest to Chicago, probably Buffalo or New York. So the purpose is the user proximity to the web server's impact on load time. The closer the CDN server is to where the user is, the faster the site loads for them. That is what CDN is. So unless we have purchased the account from Max CDN, we would not enable this feature. So we leave it blank. And for reverse proxies, I leave it blank as well. Next, for the miscellaneous options, I would leave it by default. For the debug options, I leave everything unchecked. Next, for import-export settings, after your setting, you save your file. You could export the configuration by click on the download button, or you have an existing setting somewhere resided on your computer, you could choose to import the configurations. So I'll leave everything as is, and I'll click on Save All Settings. Once the W3 Total Cache options configured, now you will notice that your website will load under 2 seconds, sometimes less. Thank you very much for watching this course. And I really appreciate the opportunity for guiding you through this course. If you have any questions, please post them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the logging lockdown. Logging lockdown limits the number of logging attempts from a given IP range within a certain time period. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following tasks: search, download, install, configure, and test the logging lockdown. We are currently at the WordPress dashboard. On the left-hand side, you will see a menu. In that menu, click on Plugins. The plugins will be highlighted in the menu. and you will be shown the plugin you have installed so far. Now click Add New Menu Item and go to the Search Plugin box. Type in Logging Lockdown. Entered. The Logging Lockdown appeared on a page of search results. Then click the Install Now button to start installing the plugin. Then click Activate Plugin. Next, go to Settings and click on Logging Lockdown. The Logging Lockdown options page displayed. Next, we are going to configure the Logging Lockdown options. Now, we are going to configure the Logging Lockdown options. First, we want to set the max logging retry. Basically, this options allows the number of failed logging attempts within the retry time period restrictions defined below needed to trigger a lockdown. For testing purposes, I put 3 attempts. Second, we want to set up the retry time period restriction in minute. This is the amount of time that determines the rate at which failed logging attempts are allowed before a lockdown occurs. Third, we want to set up the lockout length in minutes. This is how long a particular IP block will be locked out for once a lockdown has been triggered. For testing purposes, I enter 1 minute. This is to lock me out for 1 minute. Fourth, we want to lock out invalid username. By default, logging lockdown will not trigger if an attempt is made to log in using a username that does not exist. You can override this behavior here. So I leave these options yes always. Basically, the mask logging error is that do you want it to display an error message? For example, you got an invalid username or password. Finally, do we want to show the credit link on the logging page? For instance, a credit link display such as logging form protected by logging lockdown. For testing purposes, I would leave it as yes, display the credit link. But as a preventative measure, I would turn it off by clicking on the no, do not display the credit link. Please do not get me wrong. The logging lockdown is a great tool, but for preventative measure, we want to we do not want to let the hacker know what kind of tools that we are using for our website. Finally, I would click on the Update Setting button to save the configured options. Next, we want to test the logging lockdown options. Next, we want to test the logging lockdown options. I'm going to log out. Now, I am going to attempts with 3 invalid username or password to see if the 4th attempt would log me out. So, after the 3rd attempt, I got an error message. We are sorry, but this IP range has been blocked due to too many recent failed logging attempts. Please try again later. Based on our configuration earlier, I will be logged out for 1 minute. So after 1 minute, I am going to attempt to log in with a valid username and password. As you can see, here is the show credit link. Now that the 1 minute have passed, I should be able to log back into the WordPress dashboard with a valid username and valid password. Let's try it. Notice I am able to log back in no problem. We have installed, configured, and tested the logging lockdown options. Thank you for watching this video. I am greatly appreciated for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. If you have any questions, please post them in our forum page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the Lockdown WP Admin plugin. This plugin conceals the administration and login screen from intruders. It can hide WordPress admin folder such as wp-admin and login page such as wp-logging.php. When you reach the end of this section, you should be able to complete the following task: search, download, install, configure, and test the Lockdown WP Admin. We are currently at the WordPress dashboard. On the left hand side, you will see a menu. In that menu, click on Plugins. The plugins menu will be highlighted and you will be shown the plugin you have installed so far. Now click Add New and place your cursor in the search plugin. and type lockdown WP admin and hit enter. The lockdown WP admin appeared on a page of search result. Then click on Install Now button to start installing the plugin. Then click Activate Plugin. The Lockdown WP admin has been installed and activated. Then click on Lockdown WP link. The Lockdown WordPress admin page appears. Here we want to click on Yes, please hide WP admin from the user when they aren't logged in. That is, we can hide WordPress administration interface from the public. If you enable this when you access the login URL with WP-admin, then you aren't logged in. When you aren't logged in, you will receive a 404 error page instead of redirecting to the login page. Next, we want to change the current login URL from WP-admin to some name. In my case, I typed in test login for testing purposes. Then I scroll down and I click on Save Options. As you can see, the current login URL has been updated from WP-admin to test login. Then we want to log out and test the lockdown WordPress admin. As you can see, the WP-admin login URL has been updated with test login URL. Let's see what happened when I enter the WP-admin URL. It displayed an error 404, page not found. This is perfect. The WP-admin login URL has been hid from the public interface. Then we want to test the new login URL, which is the test login URL. I am entering the username. This is perfect. When we notice here, when we logged in, the WP-admin login URL has been displayed to us in the back end, but it's hide this URL to the public interface. So it works. It works as it intended to do. Thank you very much for watching this course, and I really appreciate the opportunity for guiding you through this course. If you have any questions, please post them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the Updraft Plus backup and restorations. It is one of the best plugins to backup WordPress website, files, images, themes, plugins, and database, and how to store the backup to the cloud. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following task: search, download, install, configure, and test the Updraft Plus backup and restoration. We are currently in the WordPress dashboard. On the left-hand side, we will see a menu. In that menu, click on Plugins. The plugins will be highlighted in the menu, and it's shown the plugin we have installed so far. Now click Add New. And enter Updraft Plus and hit Enter. The Updraft Plus backup and restoration plugin appeared in the searched results. Next, click Install Now. This may take a few seconds to unpackage the plugin and install the plugin. Next, click Activate Plugin. Next, place the mouse over Settings and click Updraft Plus Backup. The Updraft Plus Backup Restore dashboard appear. Here we can see several tabs: the current status, the existing backups, the settings, the debugging expert tools, the add-on. First, click on the current status. Basically, it's showing us the action that we can take, such as backup now, restore, or clone or migrate. Basically, this, once we have configured the backup options, we can go here and click on Backup Now. Once it is backed up, we can restore, or once the backup has been created, we can use the restore to restore from the previous backup. The clone migrate means we can clone the entire site. Then we can migrate it to another server. The existing backup, this will show the previous versions of our backup. But since we have not created a backup yet, so it does not show any backup yet. Next, click on the Settings tab. Next, we want to configure backup contents and schedule. file backup interval. For testing purposes, it is best set it as manual and retain this many scheduled backup 3 generations. Database backup interval. For testing purposes, it is best to leave it as manual and retain this many scheduled backups 3 generations. And to be able to set it as a certain time and as a certain date, this is a premium features. And what do we want to include in our file backup? Basically, we want to include the plugins, the themes, and the uploads. So we leave all 3 in checks. And do we want to exclude any file that we indicated here? And any other directory found inside of your P content directory. And any other directories found inside of your P-content folder. And we also want to exclude other files than we indicated here. Next, the database encryptions. It is a premium features for reporting purposes. Where do we want to send the email after updraft is backed up, restored, cloned, or migrate, or anything relating to updraft plus? As you can see, it was sent to my admin email. Next, we need to configure the remote storage. So for testing purposes, I have created an account at Dropbox. And for a personal account, they give me 2 GB, which is not bad for testing purposes. Notice, authenticate with Dropbox. You appear to be already authenticated after you have saved your setting by clicking Save Changes below. Then come back here once and click this link to complete authentication with Dropbox. Next, click Save Changes. Now we go back to Settings. And we need to go and authenticate with Dropbox. So we click on this link. A message from Dropbox is that Updraft Plus would like to access to its own folder apps Updraft Plus inside your Dropbox. Click Allowed. As you can see, I just go to Dropbox and it created an apps folder, and it's created a subfolder called Updraft Plus. So when I click on backup now, it will create a backup.zip store on the web hosting provider and a copy sent to the remote storage such as Dropbox. So let's click a backup now. Here, this is very important. To proceed, press backup now, then watch the last log message field for activity. Do not check any of these boxes. Basically, we want to include the database in our backup. We want to include files in our backup. We want to send this backup to remote storage such as Dropbox. So do nothing else except click on backup now. Notice the backup has been done. Let's go check out the Dropbox. As you can see, since this site is a test site, it had very limited blogs, comments, images. So it didn't took very long. It took less than a minute to complete the entire backup, and it stored the in the Updraft Plus folder in Dropbox. So as you can see, for disaster recovery purposes, we can always store a copy on the remote site, and if we need to restore in case the website got hacked, then we can always download a copy and restore it. Next, I'm going to show you for, as I mentioned earlier, for disaster recovery purposes. Basically, what we want to do is to restore either the theme, the files, the plugins, or a database. For testing purposes, I'm going to go back and delete my theme on purposes and restoring the theme from my previous backup. First, we want to see what the theme looked like before I delete the theme and restoring it from a previous backup. As you can see, this is the theme, and the entire website is quite simple, because for testing purposes, I like to keep it plain. Now, we will go to Appearance, Themes, and the current active theme is Travelify. To deactivate this theme, we have to activate another theme. So let's activate the 2015 theme. The 2015 theme is currently active. Let's see if it is active. Refreshed. It may take a few minutes. As you can see, this is a plain 2015 theme. So let's go back. For disaster recovery purposes, I am actually going to delete the Travelify theme. I'll click on it and click delete. Are you sure you want to delete this theme? Click cancel to go back. OK to confirm delete. Notice the Travelify theme has been deleted. So let's go back and restore it from our backup database. This is for disaster recovery purposes and testing. So I click on Restore and click on Restore. Then it asks me, it's indicated here, restore backup from July 06, 2015, 6:23. Restoring will replace this site, theme, plugin, uploads, database, and other contents directories according to what is contained in the backup set and your selections. Choose the component to restore. Theme, and I want to restore it from my previous backup. Let's do that. I want to restore themes. Restore. As you can see, it took less than 30 seconds. It has restored my theme. This is so nice for disaster recovery purposes. And many of WordPress website users have overlooked these features. Now let's go and activate our theme, although it has been restored, but it has not been activated. So let's go to themes. There it is, it's back. Now let's activate Travelify theme and go here, click refreshed. Voila, as you can see, the theme is back. So the disaster recovery procedure for a website is extremely important for anyone, whether they develop a new website or no website, especially if you're running a large website or an e-commerce website. You want to back up your website content such as files, database, plugin, and theme on a constant basis and store them in a remote locations just in case. Thank you very much for your kind opportunity to spend time for this course. If you have any questions, please post them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the WP Mail SMTP. Have you ever wondered why client inquiry on your website contact form never got delivered to your mailbox? This plugin reconfigured the WP Mail function to use SMTP Mail Server instead of PHP Mail function and create an option page that allows you to specify various options. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following task: search, download, install, configure, and test the WP Mail SMTP plugin. In this lecture, I will be going over the WP SMTP plugin. The WP SMTP plugin enables you to reconfigure the WP Mail function to use the SMTP instead of the PHP's Mail function. This will make sure that your website mail function is more reliable. Many WordPress end users overlook this feature and relied on the PHP's mail function, which provided by web hosting provider to send mail, but the PHP's mail function is not as reliable, and sometimes it takes more than an hour or a couple days for me personally to get my mail. For instance, when my client sent me an email via my website contact form, but I did not receive it. As a result, I find that the PHP's mail function is not as reliable as a third-party plugin such as the WP SMTP plugin. Next, we will be installing the WP SMTP plugin. Click on Plugins. Click on Add New. In the search plugin, enter WP SMTP and hit enter. Notice the WP SMTP displayed on the search result page. Next, click Install Now. Next, click Activate Plugin. Next, scroll down to the bottom of the page. Then, click on Settings. Here, we will enter the following information in order to configure the SMTP plugin. Before we enter the information to configure the SMTP mail functions, I have already created an account in my web hosting provider. In your case, if you have not already created an email account from your web hosting provider, please create an email account from your web hosting provider and please obtain the following informations. You will need the SMTP host name. You will need the SMTP port number. You will need the username of your email account. You will need the password of your email account. In my case, I will enter my email account information and my SMTP informations as a demonstrations in this lecture. The from name is the SMTP host for my email account is and the SMTP port for my account is, and yes, we want to click yes to the SMTP authentications. Do we want SMTP authentications? Click yes, and the username is the actual email account that you created on your web hosting provider, and the password is the password for the actual email account that you created on your web hosting provider. And delete options. If we click a check mark here, it means that when we deactivate the plugin or delete the plugin, it will clear up all these informations for us. So for testing purposes, I uncheck the delete options while deactivate this plugin. Save changes. Next, we could send an email to a test account to quickly find out whether the SMTP mail function worked correctly. In my test account is IamOutlook@yahoo.com and subject is, and in the message body I enter test WP SM on send test. To confirm whether I have received a send test email, I could log into my Yahoo email account with the my email address, such as the IamOutlook@yahoo.com. Now that we have installed the WP SMTP, I am certain that your website email account for corresponding with your clients is more reliable. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to guide you through this course. If you have any questions, please post them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the WordPress SEO by Yoast. This plugin allows complete control of website optimizations. It allows you to add title and meta description on a per page or per post basis, as well as per each taxonomy. That is, allow you to add the titles and meta description to the category or the tag pages. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following task. Search, download, install, configure, and test the WordPress SEO by Yoast. Clicking on the SEO icon takes you to WordPress SEO by Yoast General Settings page. You can take a tour of the plugin by clicking on the Start Tour, or you can view a summary of the most recent changes in WordPress SEO by Yoast, or you could restore the default settings by clicking on this button. Switch to your info tab. This is where you will add information about your site and the person or the company behind it. Next, enter a site name and an alternative name for search engine to recognize your site. Your site name could be your site title. If you leave the website name blank, then WordPress SEO will automatically use your site title as your website name. Search engines like Google can display this information in search result, and you can add an alternate name. Notice how I add my website name and the alternate name for my website. Next, we need to select whether this website is run by a company or an individual. If you select a person name, then you have to add the person name. If you select the company, then you have to add the company, and you can also upload the company logo. Switch to Webmaster Tools tab. The Webmaster Tools lets you see relevant data about your site from the specific search engines. In order to verify your site and to see the data from various sites, you have to add the metadata to your site or upload a file. In my case, I have created a Google Webmaster Tool account and added my website, and I have extracted the Google Search Console ID, which is the Google Webmaster Tool account ID, and I added to the Google Search Console box. As you can see, you can add the Alexa verification ID, Bing Webmaster Tool. However, you need to create the accounts for each of these search engines and click on Save Changes. Next, switch to Security tab. This has only one option, which disable advanced part of the WordPress SEO meta box. I recommend that you leave it unchecked. Checking it will prevent your authors or editors from making changes like redirects and non-index, which could cause problem for your website later on. Next, click on the Titles and Metas menu. The Titles and Metas section under WordPress SEO has several tabs in it. I will go over each one of them. In the General tab, you can configure some site-wide general settings. However, WordPress SEO can auto-detect if it needs to rewrite titles or not. As a result, you can leave this as it is, leave it as unchecked. In addition, you can select the separator used between post title and site title. So we leave the title separator as it is and click on Save Changes. You can define the title and description for the front page by editing the front page itself. For instance, this is your title of your front page. And this is the focus keyword. As an illustration, I have entered the focus keyword, the SEO title, and the meta descriptions that are relevant to the website. Next, click Update. Next, switch to Post Tapes tab. By default, WordPress comes with several post tapes such as post, page, revisions, media, attachment, and navigations menus. You can also define your own custom post tape. WordPress SEO allows you to set titles and meta for post, page, media, and other custom post tape. WordPress SEO automatically enters title template variable for all your post tapes and leaves your description and other fields blank. I highly recommend that you change the title templates where you only keep the actual title element and remove the site name. An important thing to remember is that WordPress SEO plugin also adds an SEO meta box in your post edit area. So to get the most out of the WordPress SEO is to manually enter title and description for each post. Otherwise, WordPress SEO will use the title as defined here and will automatically add the description for your posts and pages. Next, switch to Taxonomies tab. On the Taxonomies tab, you can configure title and meta for categories, tags, custom taxonomy, and post format archives. By default, template variables should work for most sites. As for descriptions, remember that WordPress SEO pick up descriptions from your categories and tags. If you do not have any description for terms in your categories, tags, or custom taxonomy, then WordPress SEO does not add meta description in archives for these terms. On the Archives tab, you have title and meta settings for author and archives, Dave's archive, and special pages such as search and 404 pages. I recommend that you check Disable Author Archive for single author blocks. If you are running a single author block, then your main block and author archives contain exactly the same content. The setting is there to prevent duplicate content. You can leave auto settings as they are and save changes. Next, switch to Other tab. The Other tab has some additional settings, like you can disable picking up descriptions from demos or Yahoo directory for your page. Please leave this unchecked and this unchecked because we want to add our websites and pages and posts and the website relevant data to the Open Directory project and Yahoo directory projects. So leave everything unchecked. Next, click on the social menu item. One awesome feature of the WordPress SEO by Yoast is that it's enable your site to integrate with Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, LinkedIn, MySpace, Pinterest, YouTube. The first tab under social setting is for all your social account. This allows WordPress SEO to tell Google about your social profiles. Simply add the URLs and the Twitter username for the main social profile for your site. Next, switch to the Facebook tab. On the Facebook tab, the first thing you need to do is check the box that say add open graph metadata. Checking this box allows WordPress SEO to add Facebook Open Graph metadata in your websites. This will help Facebook pick up the right thumbnail and page information when a post from your website is shared on Facebook. The next option is to link your website with Facebook profile. This profile can be a user profile as well as a Facebook app. By adding a Facebook admin will give you access to Facebook Insight for your site. What is Facebook Insights? Well, what is Facebook Insight? Facebook Insights can give you analytics on how people are interacting with your domain on Facebook. To get access to Facebook Insights, you need to create a Facebook Insight account and obtain the ID and then place it in the @Facebook admin. For example, I have created a Facebook Insight account. I have added my website to the Facebook Insight. Now I want to add my Facebook user ID to the Facebook admin page. First, I enter the name. Next, I enter the Facebook user ID, which is my user ID. Click on Add Admin and click on Save Changes. Now I can view relevant data from Facebook Insight from WordPress SEO by Yoast. Next, switch to Twitter tab. The Twitter tab enables you to add Twitter cards into your site head sections. You can choose the card type to use. I recommend using summary with large image. Save changes. Next, switch to Pinterest tab. Pinterest uses Open Graph metadata just like Facebook. Make sure that you have Open Graph metadata box checked under Facebook settings. After that, you just need to enter the site verification code provided by Pinterest in this box. If you are interested in using the Pinterest Open Graph, please create a Pinterest account and obtain the Pinterest verification code and add the codes here. Next, switch to the Google Plus tab. On the Google Plus tab, check the box to allow Google Plus related data for post. The second option for this page is to enter your Google Plus publisher page. If you have created a Google Plus page for your business, enter its URL here and then go to your Google Plus business page and enter your URL in About section. Next, click on the XML sitemaps menu item. Click the checkbox. Check this box to enable XML sitemap functionalities. The sitemaps are important for your WordPress website. It is the simplest way to get indexed and notify search engines about your website content. Sitemaps enables you to tell search engines how to prioritize your content. WordPress SEO by Yoast makes it easy to add XML sitemap in WordPress. The XML sitemaps setting is divided into different tabs. We will go through the tabs. First, you need to make sure that the box that says check this box to enable XML sitemap functionality is checked. Next, switch to User Sitemap tab. Here, you need to click on the Users Sitemap tab and disable Author User Sitemap. Next, switch to the Post Tapes tab. Here, you can disable any post tape that you don't want to be included into your sitemaps. By default, WordPress SEO disable media attachments from sitemap. If you are using a custom post tape that you don't want to be included, then you can disable it here. Next, switch to the taxonomy tab. You can repeat the same process for taxonomy. If there is a taxonomy that you don't want to include it into your sitemap, then you can exclude it here. Next, click on the Advanced menu items. The Advanced Settings page allows you to configure breadcrumbs, permanence, links, and RSS feed related settings. First, breadcrumbs are great for internal linking because it defines a clean path or trail to the page. These breadcrumbs also appear in search results, giving your site extra advantage in the search results. Click to enable breadcrumbs. Next, click to enable the breadcrumbs. The default settings should work for most websites. However, if you like to change something, then go ahead. Once you are done, click on the Save Changes button. Next, switch to the Permalinks tab. Before we go over the configurations for permalinks, I want to clarify the permalinks for WordPress SEO Yoast. The permalink setting in Yoast SEO tab, not in the setting tab. This plugin adds on those that are built into WordPress. This section does not allow you to create SEO-friendly URL in WordPress. It assumes that you have already done that. So let's take a look at what type of features this section offers. WordPress by default adds a category based in each URL. For example, /category/. By checking this first box, you can strip that from your category URL. This is something that people want, but you can leave it unchecked if you do not want your category URL and page URL to conflict if they are the same name. Next is to enforce trailing slashes on your category and tag URLs. If you are one of the users who have .html at the end of their post, then you probably want to select these options. Just leave it as is. Stop words are common words used in plain language. Yoast think that by removing these stop words, it makes the URL cleaner. So we could leave the remove stop word from slug checked. Under the clean up the head section, you can safely check hide short link for post. If you are not using a client or app to update your site, then you can also check hide RSD link and WLW manifest link and click Save Changes. Next, switch to RSS tab. For the RSS tab option, we leave it as default configurations. Next, click on the Tools menu section. WordPress SEO by Yoast comes with some very powerful built-in tools. Bulk Editor. This tool allows you to quickly change titles and descriptions of your posts and pages without having to go into the editor for each page. Let's take a look at the Bulk Editor options. Notice here we can enter the new Yoast SEO title for each page or post. And since we do not want to enter a new Yoast SEO title, so we click back to Tools page. File Editor. This tools allows you to quickly change important file for your SEO like your robot.txt and your .ht access file. I highly recommend it that just leave the robot.txt and the .ht access file as is unless you know what you are doing. Let's go back to the back to tools page. And for the import and export tools, the import setting from other SEO plugin and export your setting for reuse on another block. So let's see what these tools provide. It provides an option for us to import the external files, or we can export the current WordPress SEO configurations for later usage, or export it to another, or for import it to another blog. So we have spent a lot of time configuring WordPress SEO by Yoast. So I highly recommend that you export it for backup purposes. We want to include taxonomy metadata. Export your WordPress SEO setting. Click on Export your WordPress SEO setting. Export created. Download your export file here. Now the WordPress SEO by Yoast configurations that we have configured so far have saved it to our personal computer. Let's back to Tools page. Next, click on the extension menu item. Here you can find the WordPress SEO extension. For instance, if you would like to buy the premium WordPress SEO, the video SEO, the news SEO, the local SEO, and the Yoast WooCommerce SEO. These are the premium features that you could purchase from Yoast website. Get the best out of WordPress SEO by Yoast. We need to further customize the setting on per post basis. Let's see how we can achieve this. Next, scroll to the top and click the post menu item. Click on Edit. Scroll to the bottom of the post. Notice on each post and page editor, you will see this new box called WordPress SEO that has a lot of fields like SEO title, focus keyword, meta description. I recommend that you should write a custom title and a meta descriptions as opposed to letting WordPress auto-generate your post title and your SEO title for you. It's far more effective for you to customize your SEO title and your focus keyword so that it shows up better on the search engines. Next, I will discuss the primary features of SEO plugin. I have added a title of the post, and the title is how to optimize your website. And for testing purposes, I have added a simple sentence up to the post body. And here we can further configure the WordPress SEO to ensure that the page is optimized. For the focus keyword, next click the focus keyword text box and enter. Notice something interesting. A suggested list of keywords popped it up for us to further refine our selections. I have selected the Optimize Your WordPress Site from the suggested focus keyword pop-up box. For the SEO title could be the same or it could not be the same. And for the meta description, you could enter something that is similar to your focus keyword and your SEO title. Here, I entered learn the process of optimize your website and increase your page ranking. For the meta descriptions, I have entered learned the process of optimizing your website and increasing your page ranking. For the meta descriptions, I have entered learn the process of optimizing your website and increasing your page ranking. And click update. Once you click Save or Update the post, there is a tab called Page Analysis. This gives you even further insight about your specific post or page. Let's click on Page Analysis tab. The message in the box is to update this page analysis, save as draft or update, and check this tab again. As you can see, there are different colors for the circle. Red circle means that we need to work on the items, and the orange circle means that there are rooms for us to improve the items, and green means that it is good to go. For testing purposes, I will leave the page analysis as is. Once you are configuring your WordPress SEO, please have a careful look at the message in the WordPress SEO box so that you can improve your SEO page or post. For testing purposes, I will leave the message as is. However, when you are working on your WordPress SEO, please carefully examine each message in the WordPress SEO page analysis so that you can improve your SEO title, SEO focus word, and your meta descriptions informations, as it will improve your page ranking. Next, switch to the Advanced tab. For the Advanced tab sections, I'll leave everything as it is. Next, switch to the Social tab. Here, we can further enhance the Facebook title if you like. Basically, what WordPress SEO enable us to do here is, if you don't want to use the post title or for sharing the post on Facebook, but instead want another title there, write it here. And we can also update the Facebook descriptions too. And you can upload a separate image as well. And all this information will appear on your Facebook's post or pages. And you could repeat the process for Twitter's title, Twitter description, and Twitter images. I am concluding my WordPress SEO Yoast lecture. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to guide you through this lecture. If you have any questions, please post them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the Google Analytics by Yoast plugin for WordPress. It allows you to track your blog and website. It is simple to integrate with Google Analytics APIs, and it provides a really nice visitor metric dashboard right in your WordPress. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following task. Search, download, install, configure, and test the Google Analytics by Yoast. To use Google Analytics by Yoast, we need to have a Google Analytics account. In this lecture, I will walk you through step by step of creating a Google Analytics account and retrieve the Google Analytics ID. First, you need to create a Google Analytics account. I am already at the Google Analytics website. Click Sign in to Google Analytics. Since I already signed in, next I need to sign up for the Google Analytics account. Click on Sign Up. Then select Website. Next, set up your account informations. Then we need to enter the account name. We need to enter the website name. Next, enter the website URL. Next, we need to select the industry. For testing purposes, I select Internet and Telecom. reporting time zone, I select. Canada. And next, this is important. Next, click Get Tracking ID. The Google Analytics Terms of Service Agreement appear. Click I accept. Notice the Business Post System website have been created. Notice we got a tracking ID. Next, the website tracking. This is important. This is the Universal Analytic Tracking Code for this property. To get all the benefits of Universal Analytic for this property, copy and paste this code into every web page you want to track. This is your tracking code. Copy and paste it into the code of every page you want to track. So basically, to select all and copy it. Notice we can see the tracking ID and the website tracking code. We need to add this code to every page on our website that we want Google Analytics to track. Next, we want to add the codes to our website pages, and the easiest way to add the tracking code to our pages is by installing the Insert, Headers, and Footers plugins. Next, go back to my website, plugins, add new, click Install Now. Activate plugin. Notice the header and footer script plugin has been installed and activated. Next, click Settings and click Header and Footer Scripts. Then go to the Scripts in Footer box and click Paste and click Save Settings. And we are all set. The Google tracking codes has been added to all the pages of the website. Notice it will take 24 hours for you to see the results appeared in the Google Analytics page. Next, we go back to the Google Analytics and remember to copy the tracking ID because we need to add this tracking ID to the Google Analytics by Yoast plugin. Next, we want to install the Google Analytics by Yoast. Click on Add New. In the search plugin box, enter Google Analytics by Yoast and hit Enter. Click Install Now. Click Activate Plugin. Next, let's go find Google Analytics by Yoast plugin. Click Settings. In the General Settings box, it asks you to authenticate with your Google account. Click on Authenticate with your Google account. Notice the email that I used to create the Google Analytics accounts is this one. Now we need to accept. And this is it's indicated that we need to copy this code, switch your application, and paste it there. So I copy this code and paste the code I just copied into this box, save authentication code. That was quick and simple. Once we have authenticated with Google Analytics, in the general setting, click Check Outbound, click and Downloads box. This will enable you to track the click and downloads will be tracked as events. You can find these under Content, Event Tracking in your Google Analytics reports. By checking the Allow Tracking of Anonymous Data, it allows Yoast to track anonymous data. According to Yoast, it can better help us because they know which WordPress configuration, themes, and plugin that they should test. According to Yoast, no personal data will be collected for Yoast. If you click the anonymized IP, let's add the anonymized IP telling Google Analytics to anonymize the information sent by the tracker object by removing the last octet of the IP address prior to its storage. And you can ignore the user's role. In this case, the administrator, the editor. We do not want the Google Analytics to track the administrator and the editors. So I entered. So by default, we could add administrator, editors, authors, and perhaps customer, and perhaps sub-manager. And this option is disable Analytics dashboard. We do not want to disable the Analytics dashboard. Click Save Changes. Next, switch to the Universal tab. Next, switch to Universal tab. For the Universal setting, I leave the settings as default. Next, switch to the Advanced tab. For the Advanced setting, I leave the setting as default. Next, switch to the Custom Dimensions tab. To use the Custom Dimension features, you need to upgrade to the premium versions of Google Analytics by Yoast. Next, switch to the Debug Mode tab. The Debug Mode is when you enable Debug Mode options. It enables you to debug your blog by checking the console of your browsers. For testing purposes, I leave these options unchecked. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to guide you through this course. I really appreciate your time and interest in this course. If you have any questions, please leave them on the course discussion page. In this lecture, I will be guiding you through the process of installing and configuring the Contact Form 7. This plugin is easy and flexible that anyone can use to manage multiple forms. It is simple to customize and mail its content to your email. When you reach the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following tasks. Search, install, configure, and test the Contact Form 7. We are currently in WordPress dashboard. Click on the plugins menu items. Next, click on Add New. Next, click on the Search plugin box and enter Contact Form 7 and hit Enter. Notice the Contact Form 7 displayed in the search results page. Next, click Install Now. Next, click Activate Plugin. Then, scroll down a bit to find the Contact Form 7 and click on Settings. By default, Contact Form 7 created a default contact form and it's also generated a short code by copying this short code and place it in your page or post or your text widget. And then when you view your page or your post or your text widget, it will create a form with several items on your form. For example, let's take a look at the contact form 7 items. Highlight it and copy this short code and paste it into my page or text widget. And when I view the page, it will generate the following forms item: your name, your email, your subject, your message, and the send button. Now let's test to see. Let's copy the short code and paste it into a contact page and see what kind of form get displayed. And I paste the short code and I click update. Now I click on view page. As you can see, the short code that I copied from the default contact form, it generated the following forms element. When we want to send a form, we must enter a name, we must enter an email address, a subject is optional, and a message is also optional, and click on send. So for testing purposes, notice the contact form 7 is really simple to use and it is very flexible to generate a form. For instance, you could use contact form 7 to create a registration form or create an enrollment form. And the contact form 7 is really simple to use and is really flexible to use. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to guide you through this course. I really appreciate your time and interest in this course. If you have any questions, please leave them on the course discussion page.